Today we're covering one of the most terrifying cases in American criminal history, John Wayne Gacy, also known as the Killer Clown, a man who outwardly appeared as a respectable businessman and beloved children's entertainer, while simultaneously murdering at least 33 young men and boys. This is the story of John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy was born on March 17, 1942, in Chicago, Illinois. His childhood was marked by violence. His father, John Stanley Gacy, was an alcoholic who physically abused his children and constantly verbally humiliated John. He called him stupid and a failure and compared him negatively to his sisters. As a child, Gacy suffered from health problems, including a heart condition that prevented him from playing sports, something his father viewed as weakness. This constant rejection by his father would haunt Gacy for the rest of his life. Despite his difficult childhood, Gacy seemed to pursue a normal life as a young adult. He married in 1964, worked for his father-in-law in the restaurant business, and became an active member of the local community. But behind the facade, something dark was hidden. In 1968, Gacy was convicted of assaulting a teenager and sentenced to 10 years in prison. He had abused the 15-year-old son of an employee. Additionally, he had tried to pay another youth to beat up the victim so he would retract his statement. Following this conviction, his wife divorced him. Gacy served only 18 months of his sentence and was released on parole in 1970. His father died during Gacy's imprisonment. They never reconciled. After his release, Gacy moved back to Chicago and bought a house on Summerdale Avenue in Norwood Park Township. He founded a construction company called PDM Contractors, which became successful. He remarried, became involved in the Democratic Party, and performed as Pogo the Clown at charity events and children's hospitals. To his neighbors, Gacy was a friendly, helpful man who regularly organized block parties. No one suspected what was happening in his basement. But already in 1971, just 1 year after his release, Gacy committed his first murder. His victim was a 16-year-old boy whom he stabbed after the two had sex. Gacy later claimed the boy had tried to blackmail him. He buried the body in the crawl space beneath his house. Over the following years, Gacy developed a terrible pattern. His victims were almost exclusively young men and boys between 14 and 21 years old. Many of them worked for his construction company or were teenagers he approached at bus stops or in downtown Chicago. Gacy's methods were diabolically calculated. He lured his victims to his house with job offers, money, or alcohol. There, he frequently showed them a perfidious magic trick. He would show them handcuffs and offer to demonstrate how to escape from them. Once the victims put on the handcuffs, they were helplessly at his mercy. What followed was unimaginably cruel. Gacy bound his victims, sexually assaulted them, and tortured them for hours. He strangled many of his victims with a homemade device, a rope or board that he used like a garrote. Gacy cynically called this his rope trick. He later described coldly how he watched his victims die while reading Bible verses to them. He said he felt like God with power over life and death. Gacy buried most of the bodies in the narrow crawl space beneath his house. He sprinkled lime over the bodies to mask the smell of decomposition. When space in the crawl space ran out, he began burying bodies under his garage and in the yard. He threw at least 4 victims into the Des Plaines River. Between 1972 and 1978, Gacy's murder rate accelerated dramatically. In 1978 alone, he killed at least 9 young men, sometimes several within a few weeks. His second marriage ended in 1976, after which he lived alone, giving him even more freedom for his crimes. Despite multiple tips and reports about Gacy's behavior, it took years before police caught up with him. Several teenagers had reported him for sexual assault, but the investigations went nowhere. The stench from his house became so bad that Gacy claimed it was due to a sewage problem. The breakthrough came in December 1978 when 15-year-old Robert Pice disappeared. Pice's mother told police that her son wanted to speak with a contractor named Gacy, who had offered him a job. Police began surveilling Gacy and investigating his background. When investigators learned of Gacy's prior conviction for sex offenses, they increased the pressure. They tailed him around the clock. Under this stress, Gacy began to fall apart. He even invited the watching police officers into his home and tried to manipulate them. On December 11, 1978, police finally searched Gacy's house. What they found was incomprehensible. In the crawl space, they discovered human remains. As investigators continued searching, they found more and more bodies, in various stages of decomposition, stacked on top of each other. Gacy was arrested and eventually confessed to 33 murders. He led investigators through his house and showed them where he had buried the bodies. He spoke about his crimes with chilling indifference, as if discussing everyday matters. The recovery of the bodies took weeks. Forensic experts worked under extremely difficult conditions in the narrow, crowded crawl space. In total, 29 bodies were recovered from the house and property, 4 more from the river. Identifying the victims was challenging. Many bodies were so badly decomposed that they could only be identified through dental records. Some of the victims remain unidentified to this day. Gacy's victims included runaway teenagers, hustlers, but also young men who worked for him or whom he had met by chance. The youngest identified victim was 14 years old, the oldest 21. The trial of John Wayne Gacy began in February 1980 and became one of the most closely watched court proceedings in American history. Gacy's defense tried to plead insanity, but the jury disagreed. The evidence was overwhelming. Witnesses testified about Gacy's violent outbursts and sexual assaults. Forensic experts described the gruesome details of the murders. In March 1980, Gacy was found guilty of 33 counts of murder. He was sentenced to death. He spent the following 14 years on death row. During this time, Gacy gave interviews, painted pictures, including his infamously notorious clown portraits, and continued to claim he was partially innocent. He tried to minimize his actions and accused others of committing some of the murders. On May 10, 1994, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection at the Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois. His last words were, "Kiss my ass." The John Wayne Gacy case deeply shook America. It showed that monsters don't just lurk in dark alleys, but can also hide behind a facade of respectability and normalcy. Particularly disturbing was the image of the clown. Gacy's performances as Pogo the Clown contributed to the cultural fear of clowns that persists to this day. He proved that someone could simultaneously make children laugh and commit unimaginable crimes. The case also led to changes in investigative work. Police recognized they needed to take reports of missing young men more seriously. Many of Gacy's victims had been dismissed as runaways. Their disappearances were not adequately investigated. For the families of the victims, Gacy's arrest meant certainty, but also decades of pain. Some families are still waiting today for the identification of their loved ones. John Wayne Gacy remains one of the most prolific serial killers in American history. His story is a terrifying reminder that evil often exists in hiding, sometimes right before our eyes, concealed behind a smile.